There are places where time holds its breath, where answers fade, and only whispers remain. Across forgotten lands, beneath ancient stones, and between the folds of lost history, lie mysteries the world no longer remembers. Some were buried by nature, others by man, but all are united by one thing: silence. Tonight, we invite you to drift through shadowed corridors of the past, to visit cities swallowed by the sea, paintings that defy reason, doors that no one dares open, each story a thread woven into time's quiet tapestry. So, find a quiet place, let your thoughts slow, and if you enjoy these calm, mysterious journeys into the forgotten, feel free to subscribe. It means the world. Now, let us begin with the first of 33 forgotten mysteries buried in time. The echoes beneath Orkney, a silent temple older than Stonehenge. The sea breathes quietly against the cliffs of northern Scotland. Fog drapes the land like a veil of memory, and somewhere beneath the moss and ancient soil of Orkney, a mystery waits in silence, one that predates the pyramids, one built not with tools of war, but with an understanding lost to time. This is not a story of monsters or myths. This is a true story, forgotten by centuries, unearthed only in whispers. If you enjoy these gentle journeys into the quiet corners of history, feel free to subscribe and follow along. As we sink slowly into the past, there is a place far to the north where the land feels untouched by time. The Orkney Islands, scattered like forgotten fragments off the coast of Scotland, are remote and windswept, and yet, beneath their quiet terrain lies a structure so ancient, it bends the very timeline of human civilization. In the early 2000s, during routine excavations on the Ness of Brodgar, a narrow strip of land between two misty lochs, archaeologists uncovered something unexpected. Beneath the gentle grass was not just one structure, but an entire complex, an intricately planned stone temple, possibly older than Stonehenge and even the Great Pyramid of Giza. The site was massive, covering over 6 acres. But what truly puzzled researchers wasn't the size, it was the precision. These were not crude stone piles. The walls were thick, expertly shaped. Some stones reached nearly 6 feet long, laid perfectly flat. There were drainage systems, paved walkways, and standing stones that aligned with the sun. It was as if someone had not merely built, but designed this place with purpose. The walls bore pigments, reds, yellows, ochres, suggesting that once they were vividly painted. This was no dull or purely functional shelter. It was ceremonial, it was sacred. But here is where the mystery deepens. This temple complex had been deliberately covered up at some point. Nearly 5,000 years ago, the people who built the Ness of Brodgar buried it, stone by stone, wall by wall, as though they were preserving a secret, or saying goodbye to something they no longer wished to be part of. Why? Why would a civilization invest so much in creating something monumental, only to bury it within a few generations? No texts remain, no obvious enemies, no signs of battle. The people simply disappeared from this story. They left behind a silence that echoes through time. Some archaeologists believe this site could have been a center for ritual, not of sacrifice or fear, but of gathering, feasting, observing the stars, honoring nature. Others whisper theories of ancient knowledge, that these Neolithic builders understood patterns in the Earth's energy, or celestial alignments we've forgotten. The temple's walls curve in strange patterns. The stone doorways are so narrow that they force the body to enter sideways, humbly. It feels more like entering a place of reflection than a room. Artifacts found on the site include polished axes, never used, carved stone balls with perfect symmetry, and dozens of cattle skulls, arranged carefully along the walls. A silent procession frozen in stone. But as the years passed, the site faded again from public memory. The excavation continues each summer, slowly revealing more, but still, there are no definitive answers. No great inscriptions, no names, just silence and stone. What did they know? Who were they? Were they the same people who would later build the great rings of Brodgar and Stenness nearby? Or did they vanish long before, their knowledge swallowed by soil? Even now, visitors to Orkney say the land feels strange, not eerie, but charged, as though the past breathes just beneath your feet. Some nights, when the mist rolls in across the lochs, you can almost hear it. The wind changes, the air stills, and for a moment, it feels as though time is bending, revealing the shadow of a civilization not lost, but waiting to be remembered. And then the silence returns, a soft, peaceful pause, one that drapes the temple once again in mystery. The city that fell from the sky, the nameless ruins of Nan Madol Banath, the stars of the Western Pacific. On a tiny, forgotten island called Pohnpei lies a riddle built of basalt and coral, an abandoned city that defies time, logic, and even gravity, a place the ocean sighs over gently, as if guarding its secrets with salt and silence. No roads lead to it, no machines could have built it, and no one knows why it was built at all. Off the coast of Micronesia, in the heart of the Pacific, rises a structure so strange that it feels like a dream. Surrounded by coral reefs and lapping tides, the ruins of Nan Madol sit atop nearly 100 artificial islets, each stacked with giant volcanic stones, some weighing up to 50 tons. To the outsider, it might resemble a fantasy drawn from the mind of an ancient mariner, walls of black stone rising directly from the turquoise lagoon, narrow canals threading between them like quiet veins. Locals call it the Venice of the Pacific. But Nan Madol is far older than any European city, and far more mysterious, that the construction is unlike anything else in Oceania. Thousands of basalt columns, naturally formed in hexagonal shapes by volcanic processes, were somehow transported across the island, across uneven jungle terrain, and laid meticulously in a crisscross pattern called log cabin style. No mortar, no reinforcement, just balance and sheer weight. To this day, no one can explain exactly how it was done. The island of Pohnpei has no known technology from its ancient inhabitants capable of lifting such monolithic stones. There are no written records, no cranes, no beasts of burden, only oral histories, and the stone silence of the city itself. But the most haunting part of Nan Madol isn't how it was built, it's why. The city had no farmland, no access to fresh water, no trade ports. It was isolated, impractical, and vulnerable to the tides. And yet, someone or something chose to build it there. In the middle of the sea. Legends say the city was founded by two brothers, Olasipa and Olosipa, who arrived from a far-off land. They are said to have commanded the stones using magic, or song, or perhaps something we no longer understand. When they died, they passed rule to the Sordla dynasty, a line of rulers that governed Pohnpei from this city of stone. But the Sordlers, according to island lore, became cruel. Their rule turned harsh. They demanded tributes, controlled rituals, and used Nan Madol to enforce their spiritual and political dominance. Eventually, their reign ended, overthrown by a warrior. From the south, the city was abandoned, left to the jungle and the waves. And with its fall, its purpose was lost. Even today, archaeologists debate whether Nan Madol was a ceremonial site, a royal residence, or something else entirely. Perhaps even a prison for spirits, as some Pohnpeian elders believe. Divers, exploring the submerged outskirts of the city, have found even larger stones underwater, some weighing over 100 tons. Were these part of the original structure, or remnants of something even older, now swallowed by rising seas? Some theorists whisper of Mu, a mythical lost continent said to have existed in the Pacific, a kind of eastern Atlantis. They point to Nan Madol as a surviving outpost of that forgotten world. But no proof has surfaced. The reality may be more complex and more haunting. Nan Madol stands as a testament to a knowledge we've lost. Engineering without machines, urban design without necessity, power without permanence. There is no other place like it. Even now, very few people visit. The sea has reclaimed much of it. The jungle creeps quietly through the cracks. Bats flutter in the twilight, and the basalt walls, dark, wet, and impossibly ancient, remain. Silent. At sunset, the water turns gold, then black, and the ruins seem to sigh, as if they, too, remember something long buried beneath the tides. And then, there is only stillness, a stillness that hums beneath the surface of time. The machine in the cave, Greece's ancient device that shouldn't exist. Sometimes, history stutters, and in that pause, something strange slips through. A whisper from a world that shouldn't exist. Beneath the Aegean Sea, among broken statues and forgotten shipwrecks, divers found not treasure, but a machine, a mechanism so advanced, it seemed as though time itself had reversed. And in that machine, the past blinked, wide awake. In the summer of 1901, Sponge divers drifting off the coast of Antikythera, a small Greek island, came upon a shipwreck tangled in coral. The waters were clear, blue, and deceptively calm, but below, the seafloor held something no one could have expected. Among statues, amphorae, and marble debris, they found a lump of green, corroded bronze, seemingly unremarkable. It was taken back to Athens along with the other artifacts and left untouched for years. But in time, archaeologists began to notice strange gears inside the fragment. Tiny inscriptions, dials, teeth, cogs. This was not a decoration, nor a tool. It was a machine, now known as the Antikythera mechanism. This device has baffled and amazed scientists for over a century. Using modern imaging and 3D modeling, researchers have discovered that it is, in essence, an ancient analog computer, built more than 2,000 years ago, during the height of classical Greece. A machine from the ancient world, capable of calculating celestial positions, eclipses, phases of the moon, planetary alignments, even the timing of the Olympic Games. How the device consists of more than 30 interlocking bronze gears. Their teeth are so precisely carved that they rival 18th century clockwork. It includes a dial for the Metonic cycle, a 19-year astronomical period. It tracks the Saros eclipse cycle, nearly 18 years long. It even models the irregular orbit of the moon using a sophisticated system of epicyclic gearing, something not thought to exist until 1,500 years later. Who built it? Some speculate it came from the workshop of Archimedes. Others suggest it was a product of the Rhodian school of astronomy, but no clear evidence links it to any specific inventor. And perhaps more curiously, why was only one ever found? If the Greeks had this level of technology, where are the others? No similar devices have ever surfaced from that era, nothing even remotely close. The mechanism seems to exist in isolation, a single flash of brilliance in a sea of ruin. Some argue it was the product of a lost genius. Others believe it was a fragment of a larger scientific tradition that was later wiped out during wars, invasions, or the burning of the Library of Alexandria. And still others whisper more speculative theories that the device was from older knowledge, perhaps Egyptian, Babylonian, or older still. But these are only echoes. What remains is the artifact itself, corroded, fractured, but undeniable. It was real. It is real, and it shouldn't exist. The Antikythera mechanism now rests behind glass in a museum in Athens. Scientists continue to study its secrets, its dials, worn but legible, its purpose, elegant but incomplete. It is a map of the heavens, built by hands that vanished long ago, a moment of brilliance preserved in rust. Sometimes, when the museum is quiet and the city hums beyond the walls, visitors say they feel something strange as they stand before it, a sense of being watched, not by the past, but by the future that never came. The mechanism ticks no more, but in the stillness, it echoes, like a thought half remembered in the dream of history. The desert that once bloomed, the vanishing rivers of the Sahara, the sands stretch wide, endless and whispering, golden waves frozen in time. But once, long ago, this place was green, lush, alive. Beneath the dunes of the Sahara, there are bones of elephants, paintings of swimmers, and dry riverbeds so wide they could have cradled cities. This is not a desert that always was. This is a forgotten Eden, a memory buried in sand and silence. Today, when we speak of the Sahara, we think of heat, dryness, and emptiness, a lifeless expanse covering much of North Africa, an ocean of sand. But that's only part of the story. Beneath the scorching dunes lies another world, one few imagine, but science now confirms. The Sahara was once alive, 10,000 years ago, during what geologists call the African humid period. This desert was a patchwork of grasslands, lakes, and river systems. Rainfall was regular, vegetation bloomed, animal life thrived, and in the heart of this green Sahara, people lived, not nomads, but communities. We know this not only from climate data, but from what they left behind in the mountains of the central Sahara, especially in the Tassili, Najjar region of Algeria. Ancient cave art stretches across the stone, painted in ochre, carved into rock. It shows something impossible: crocodiles, hippos, girafes, and people swimming in rivers. These images are not dreams, they are records. One of the most famous artworks, called The Swimmers, depicts human figures floating peacefully, arms outstretched. surrounded by waves in a cave, now surrounded by total dryness. That archaeologists once dismissed them as symbolic or mythic, but satellite imagery has revealed the faint fingerprints of ancient riverbeds beneath the Sahara, long winding tracks carved by water thousands of years ago, rivers that rivaled the Nile in size. Some of these lie hundreds of meters beneath the sand, and some, eerily, flow toward nowhere, as if they once fed lakes or seas that have since vanished. One such body of water was Lake Megachad, a colossal ancient lake that once covered over 400,000 square kilometers, larger than any lake. Today, now, it's reduced to a fraction of its size, its memory preserved only in dried-up basins and forgotten shorelines. But what happened? Why did the Green Sahara fade? The shift was slow, gradual but devastating. Changes in Earth's tilt and orbit altered the monsoon pattern. The rains retreated south. Year by year, the grasslands turned brown, the rivers dried, the lakes became salt pans, and the people moved on. Some migrated toward the Nile Valley, perhaps helping birth early Egyptian civilization. Others disappeared, leaving behind only tools, pottery, and the art of a lost world. But even now, the desert remembers. Buried beneath the dunes are entire ancient settlements, walls, homes, burial mounds. In Libya and Niger, ground-penetrating radar has detected long-forgotten roads and stone structures, traces of irrigation, traces of order. Some believe the lost city of Zerzura, spoken of in Arab legend, may have been one such settlement, a thriving oasis kingdom swallowed by sand and time. And every so often the desert gives something back, a fossil, a shard of pottery, a petroglyph, a reminder that this desolate sea was once a garden. Today, the winds drift endlessly across the dunes. The sun carves shadows in silence, but deep below, the Sahara holds secrets in its bones, of rivers that flowed like veins, of elephants that walked beside men, of children who swam under skies now dust-dot. It is a quiet contradiction, a vast, empty land that once pulsed with life, and in its silence, you can almost hear the water still. The bells that never rang, the silent monasteries of the Himalayas high in the clouds, where the air grows thin and the mountains seem to whisper their own language. There are places untouched by centuries, built on cliffs, balanced on edges, wrapped in fog, silent monasteries that defy gravity and logic. No roads lead to them, no sounds echo from within. They wait, still and breathless, like thoughts that were never spoken aloud. And the deeper you look, the more ancient the silence becomes. The Himalayas are more than just mountains. They are guardians of forgotten time, colossal, cold, and unmoving. But hidden among their jagged spines are sanctuaries few have seen. Monasteries perched impossibly high, clinging to cliffs with the serenity of stone. One such place is Phugtal Monastery in the remote Zanskar region of northern India. Carved into the mouth of a cave like a secret kept from the world, it appears like something imagined. White walls folding into ochre cliffs, a river curling like ribbon below. But Phugtal is only the beginning. Across Bhutan, Nepal, and Tibet lie dozens of similar structures, some active, some abandoned, all haunting in their quiet. Monks still live in some, chanting at dawn, offering incense to winds that never carry the scent beyond the peaks. Yet among them are those with no living memory. No monks, no prayers, just cold altars, locked chambers, and bells that never rang. There's one in particular, a structure known locally as the Nameless Retreat, found in the shadow of Kanchenjunga, the world's third highest peak. This monastery has no written record. Local villagers only know it through whispers. They say it was discovered accidentally by shepherds chasing lost goats, a building nestled into a rock face. Its entrance almost invisible unless viewed from a very specific angle. Inside, the walls are covered in murals, not just of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but of stars. Celestial maps, meticulously painted. Unlike any traditional Buddhist art, there are no footsteps, no signs of recent habitation. And strangest of all, no bells. In most Himalayan monasteries, bells are sacred instruments, rung at dawn, at death, at awakening. But here, where the bell tower should be, there are none. Scholars who have made the pilgrimage speak of a profound silence inside the structure. One described it not as peaceful, but aware, as if the silence itself was listening. There's a room at the back, a chamber hewn directly from stone, where the ceiling is shaped like a dome. Its acoustics are perfect. A whisper can be heard across the room with clarity. But the room is empty. On the floor is a single stone disc, carved with concentric circles, like ripples in a forgotten pool. No one knows what it was for. Some suggest the monastery was an ancient observatory, tracking constellations or so. Others believe it was a retreat for a now lost order of monks, hermits who abandoned words, sound, even prayer, in search of something deeper than enlightenment. But no relics remain. No scrolls, no bones, nothing to explain its presence. Only the art, only the silence, and the wind. Locals avoid the site, not out of fear, but reverence. They say the mountain keeps it hidden for a reason, that the monastery isn't abandoned, only waiting for those who understand silence not as absence, but as language. In the modern world, where even the highest peaks are mapped and documented, this place remains an exception. It doesn't appear on tourism brochures, no formal name marks its walls, and satellite imagery struggles to distinguish its contours from the rock around it, as if it were never meant to be found. And perhaps that's the point. In a time of noise, this is a place of stillness, a place where bells never rang, because they never needed to. And when the last echo of your breath fades inside that stone chamber, what remains is something older than words, a hush, carved into the heart of the mountain. The island that appeared, then vanished, Hibrozil, and the mapmaker's mirage far out in the Atlantic, where the sky melts into sea and the horizon blurs like memory. There is said to be an island that appears once every 7 years, an island of perfect beauty, of strange animals, of silence. It glows, some say, with a golden mist, only to vanish when approached. For centuries, sailors sought it, cartographers drew it, and then it disappeared, leaving behind only a name whispered by waves. Brazil. The sea has always held its secrets, shifting coastlines, lost ships, buried cities beneath the foam. But Hibrozil is different. This is not a myth spun by poets. This island appeared on maps, real maps, for over 500 years. From as early as the 14th century, European cartographers included an island west of Ireland, often depicted as a perfect circle with a river running down the middle. It was called Hybrazil, sometimes Brazil or Brasil, likely derived from the Old Irish Ui Brasil, a legendary clan name meaning descendants of Bresel. But no one had ever set foot there, or so it seemed. In 1497, a Venetian captain named John Cabot reportedly returned from a voyage claiming he'd seen a beautiful land to the west, fertile, with black rabbits and large domes. His description bore eerie resemblance to stories of Brazil. Another account from 1674 describes a Captain Nisbet, whose ship was caught in a storm off Ireland's coast. Through the fog, he claimed, his crew saw land. They rowed ashore to find a peaceful island, rich with trees, animals, and mysterious inhabitants who spoke a strange form of Irish and claimed to possess great knowledge. That they stayed for 2 days, and when they left, the island was gone. Even more unsettling is that the coordinates of Hibrozil remained astonishingly consistent across maps for centuries, appearing in roughly the same spot, west of Galway Bay. In 1480, the famous Catalan atlas included it. Later, the Zeno map and the Pizzigano chart also depicted it, always circular, always solitary, often glowing. But by the 1800s, it vanished. Explorers sailed to its coordinates. Nothing, not even a rock, just open water. Some believe it was an illusion, a mirage caused by light refraction, where distant parts of Ireland's coast seemed to float offshore in distorted form. Others suggest it was a misidentified island later, eroded by storms or swallowed by rising seas. But the local stories persist. Irish folklore speaks of an island that appears every 7 years, visible just long enough to tempt the faithful. Some say it is cloaked in magic, others that it exists in another dimension, a liminal space between land and sea. Dream in Wakefulness. In Celtic tradition, Hibrozil was not merely a place, it was a threshold, a place of healing, of knowledge, of quiet, not heaven, not earth, but something gently in between. Even today, some fishermen claim to have seen strange mists roll in over calm waters, lights, shapes, shadows of land where no land should be, and always just out of reach. Modern scholars dismiss it as fantasy, a romantic relic of pre-modern belief. Yet a curious detail remains. The exact location once marked as Hibrozil lies not far from the Porcupine Bank, an underwater plateau. west of Ireland. Some geologists believe this region may have once been above sea level during the last ice age. Could there have once been an island there, a place, however small, that sparked centuries of stories? Or is Brazil something else entirely, a dream caught in the net of human memory, too beautiful to last, too persistent to forget? Even now, maps from centuries ago show it clearly, an island where none now exists, a perfect circle adrift in a sea of silence. And when the fog settles over the western horizon, and the ocean smooths like glass, some say you can still feel it, not see it, but sense it. A hush in the waves, a heartbeat in the mist, and a name, almost spoken by the sea. Brazil. The library with no door, the lost knowledge of Timbuktu, in the golden heart of the desert, where the dunes roll like waves frozen in wind, lies a city built not on stone, but on wisdom, a place where scrolls outnumbered swords, and silence guarded more secrets than noise ever revealed. This is not legend, this is Timbuktu, and beneath its dust and crumbling clay lie thousands of pages from a forgotten world, a library without locks, now nearly lost to time. The name Timbuktu has drifted through the Western imagination for centuries, a symbol of distance, of the edge of the world, but the real city is far more than metaphor. Nestled near the edge of the Sahara in Mali, Timbuktu was once a beacon of light in a darkening world, a place where scholars, poets, astronomers, and philosophers gathered and wrote. Between the 13th and 17th centuries, it became a flourishing center of learning, especially during the height of the Mali Empire under Mansa Musa, whose legendary wealth and pilgrimage to Mecca still echo in history books. But Timbuktu's true treasure was not gold, it was knowledge. At its height, the city housed hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, handwritten works in Arabic and local languages, covering everything from astronomy to law, mathematics to botany, ethics to love. Many were stored in private, family collections, passed down through generations. Others were kept in mosques and study centers. Like the famed Sankha University, the people of Timbuktu believed in quiet scholarship, in pages, in time, and so they wrote. What makes these manuscripts so mysterious is not only their number, but their content. Some detail mathematical equations and astronomical charts that predate European discoveries by centuries. Others explore medical practices, including surgery and treatments using local herbs, carefully recorded with illustrations. There are even documents describing planetary motion, eclipses, and philosophical debates on the nature of light. And yet, this library was never locked. No grand stone hall, no cathedral gates. Instead, the manuscripts were stored in earthen homes, wrapped in leather or cloth, hidden beneath floorboards and behind wooden shutters, protected not by walls, but by reverence. But the silence that preserved them nearly became their tomb. By the 19th century, colonial interests dismissed African knowledge as non-existent. European explorers arrived in Timbuktu searching for gold and found books instead, books they didn't understand. Many were destroyed, stolen, or left to decay. Later, during periods of civil unrest and insurgency in Mali, extremist forces threatened to burn what remained. In 2012, the risk became real. Militants seized control of Timbuktu, and fires were set, but the people of the city acted with quiet heroism. Librarians, families, and scholars smuggled tens of thousands of manuscripts out of the city, by hand, by cart, by river. They hid them in rice sacks, under beds, inside hollowed-out furniture. Over 350,000 manuscripts were saved in silence, and still, many remain unread, stored in secret rooms, slowly being digitized, still carrying the weight of centuries, waiting for new eyes to understand them. What might these pages contain? Lost cures, forgotten star maps, ideas born in Africa that the world never heard. We may never know the full extent. Because knowledge, like sand, slips through fingers where not held carefully. Timbuktu still stands, fragile, quiet, a city of clay and light. Its libraries without locks, its wisdom buried in plain sight. And when the desert wind sweeps through the alleyways at night, it carries more than dust. It carries whispers from books that almost vanished, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries are not hidden in shadows, but written down and simply unread. The stones that move themselves, the whispering tracks of Death Valley, in the heart of a silent desert. where no wind dares to howl, and the earth lies cracked like an old parchment. There are stones that move, no hands touch them, no footprints follow, only long, dragging trails across dry lake beds, silent signatures scrawled by forces we do not see. In Death Valley, even the stillness travels. In eastern California, tucked inside the searing silence of Death Valley National Park, lies a place called Racetrack Playa. It is flat, desolate, and hauntingly still. A dried lake bed more than 3,700 feet above sea level. Its surface is smooth and parched, a canvas of cracked earth that stretches like skin under a relentless sun. Yet something here defies logic. Across this lifeless ground, stones move. They leave behind long, sinuous tracks, some straight, some curving gently like thought. The stones themselves vary in size. Some weigh a few pounds, others tip the scales at over 300, and yet, they move, not in our presence, never caught in the act. Only the trails remain. Some stones have traveled over 1,500 feet, shifting directions midway, even curving back on themselves. For decades, these sailing stones puzzled scientists and storytellers alike. There are no animal marks, no signs of human interference, and until recently, no explanation. Local legends grew. Some said spirits moved the rocks. Others whispered that the desert itself was alive, breathing slowly under the stones. The mystery held its ground through generations. It wasn't until the 2010s that technology brought partial answers. Researchers placed GPS trackers on several stones and installed time-lapse cameras around the playa. They waited. Months passed with no change. The desert, as always, seemed frozen in its own ancient rhythm. Then one morning, the stones moved. Very slowly, almost imperceptibly, and here's what they found. In rare conditions, when a thin layer of ice forms overnight on the playa's surface and the sun begins to rise, the ice breaks apart into floating sheets. These sheets, pushed by light winds, nudge the stones along, not with force, but with patience, inches at a time, centimeters over hours. The process is delicate, quiet, invisible to the naked eye, but powerful enough to carve paths into hard earth. And yet, even with this explanation, the mystery is not truly solved. Why do some stones move, and others do not? Why do their paths sometimes intersect, as if dancing around each other? And why did it take decades of watching to catch it just once? For every answer, the desert offers new silence. Some physicists argue the conditions required are so rare that the phenomenon may only occur every few years. Others believe there's more, that subtle vibrations, changes in the playa's clay surface, or unseen forces play a part. But for those who walk there, it's not the explanation that lingers, it's the feeling. To stand at Racetrack Playa is to stand in a stillness so pure it almost hums. The mountains rise like ancient witnesses. The wind whispers low, careful not to disturb the mystery. And there, across the cracked floor, the trails stretched reminders that even the unmoving move. Perhaps the stones are not driven by science alone, but by time itself. Ancient minds carved from mountains, choosing their own slow journey, one grain of sand at a time. There are no engines here, no footprints, just patience. And when night falls and the stars burn above the desert like silent watchers, the stones sleep again, waiting, maybe to move again, maybe just to remind us that motion and silence are not enemies, but companions. The code no one can break, the undeciphered pages of the Voynich manuscript. Between the brittle pages of an ancient book lies a language that no living soul can read. Its letters flow like vines, its drawings bloom with impossible plants, and its meaning remains sealed, untouched by time, untouched by logic. It whispers, not in words, but in puzzles. The Voynich manuscript does not reveal, it resists, and in that resistance, it keeps something very old, very quiet, and very forgotten. In 1912, a rare book dealer named Wilfred Voynich stumbled upon a peculiar manuscript in the library of a Jesuit college in Italy. It was tucked inside a collection of older texts, its pages stained with age, its cover nondescript, but inside was something entirely different. The Voynich manuscript, as it would later be called, is approximately 240 pages long. It is written in a looping, fluid script unlike any known language, a writing system that appears natural, consistent, and purposeful, yet it matches nothing on earth. No scholar, no cryptographer, no AI system has been able to crack it. For more than a century, it has resisted all efforts to translate it. But it's not just the script that bewilders. The manuscript is filled with illustrations, bizarre, delicate, haunting. There are plants that do not exist in any botanical record, stars drawn in spiral formations, zodiac-like wheels, tubes and vessels connected by flowing shapes, and, most oddly, hundreds of naked women bathing in green liquid, interacting with pipes, pools, and strange machines. What does it mean? Some believe it's a herbal guide, perhaps medicinal in nature, a text passed down by ancient healers in a lost language. Others see it as alchemical, an attempt to map the transformation of the human soul, or the stars, or both. And others suggest it may be a cipher, a code so complex, so layered, that it was meant only for one reader. Carbon dating places the book's parchment to the early 15th century, around the 1400s, but that tells us little. We still don't know who wrote it, or where, or why. It has passed through the hands of emperors, scholars, and scientists. Even the codebreakers of World War II, the same minds who cracked Nazi ciphers, failed to make progress. In recent years, AI has tried to recognize patterns, but the patterns lead nowhere. Some believe it's a hoax, a clever forgery by an unknown medieval mind. But if that were true, it would be a hoax of impossible complexity. The language in the manuscript, dubbed Voynich, as follows: statistical patterns consistent with real languages, frequency distributions, word clustering, syntax, rhythm. It's not gibberish, but it's also not readable. And that, perhaps, is what makes it so magnetic. There is something deeply human in its construction, in the careful drawings, the marginal notes, the faded ink corrections. Whoever created it believed in its purpose, or in the mystery of that purpose. Some theories grow stranger still, that it is a channeled text, written in trance, like automatic writing from another plane of existence. That it is the record of a civilization that existed in secrecy, whose language and plants have since vanished. That it is a mirror not of knowledge, but of imagination itself, a dream written in its own logic. Today, the manuscript rests in the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. Its pages are fragile. Visitors may only view it under glass or through high-resolution scans, but many still try, obsessively, to unlock it. Cryptographers, botanists, historians, linguists, dreamers, and yet the silence remains. Every new theory dissolves like mist under morning light, and the book, like a patient riddle, waits. In a world overwhelmed with answers, the Voynich manuscript offers something else, a question without an end, a whisper that cannot be shouted, a meaning that does not want to be known, only wondered at. The clock that counts without time, the eternal machine of Progen, the heart of a city built from stone and shadow. There ticks a clock older than memory. It doesn't just tell time, it tells stories, but no one knows who gave it a soul. High above the square, it watches, turning endlessly, even when no one is listening. Some say it predicts more than ours, some say it knows when time ends. In the old town of Prague, where cobblestone streets glow under gaslight and cathedrals pierce the fog like solemn thoughts, there stands one of the strangest timepieces in the world. It is called the Prague astronomical clock, or horloge, mounted on the southern wall of the old town hall. It dates back to 1410, over 600 years ago, and unlike any ordinary clock, it doesn't simply measure the passage of time. It represents it in layers of mystery, motion, and meaning. The horloge is a wonder of medieval engineering. It has three main components: the astronomical dial, which shows the position of the sun and moon in the sky, along with various astronomical details like phases, ecliptic paths, and old Bohemian timekeeping. The Walk of the Apostles, a mechanical performance that activates every hour, with statues of saints and symbolic figures rotating in procession, watched by death itself, who rings a bell with skeletal fingers. A calendar dial, added in the 15th century, displaying the current date, zodiac signs, saints' feast days, and agricultural cycles. But here's what makes the horloge truly mysterious. Its purpose remains unclear. Some believe it was designed as a sacred cosmic map, a representation of heaven and earth in perfect order, created not for practical timekeeping, but for divine alignment. Others see it as an encoded astrological tool, forecasting not just seasons, but destinies. And then, There is the legend art. It is said that the man who built the horloge, a clockmaker named Master Hanus, created something so unique, so ahead of its time, that the city elders feared he might replicate it elsewhere. To protect Prague's singular treasure, they blinded him. But in revenge, Hanus is said to have sabotaged the clock before his death, casting a final curse upon its gears. After that, the clock fell silent for decades. When it was repaired, strange things reportedly happened. Unusual weather, missing tools, sudden illness among those who worked on it, a tale, perhaps, or a warning written in brass and silence. Even today, the horloge seems alive. Its eyes, those of painted wooden saints and celestial figures, watch the crowds with a gaze still to be entirely lifeless. Each hour, tourists gather to watch the procession, but few understand the layers turning quietly behind the facade. The dial shows old check time, where the day begins at sunset, a system no longer used, but preserved in the clock's soul. The astronomical dial reveals more than time. It reveals where time sits in the universe, in colors of gold, blue, and black, representing the heavens, earth, and the unknown beyond. There are inscriptions in Latin, ancient symbols, coded scripts, and as the sun arcs across the face of the clock, it doesn't move in a straight line. It spirals, reflecting the curvature of the earth and the dance of the seasons. It is not a machine built to serve man. It is a machine built to remind man that he is part of something greater. During World War II, the clock was damaged by fire. Its wooden figures charred, its dials cracked, but the people of Prague rebuilt it, gear by gear, like a heartbeat. Restored, and still it turns. In rain, snow, or silence, it turns. Some say the horloge is more than a clock, that it contains forgotten knowledge encoded by medieval minds, a blend of science, mysticism, and sacred geometry, a whisper from an age when astronomy was prayer, and time was a sacred rhythm. And some believe that when the horloge finally stops, truly, fully stops, it will mark not the end of the clock, but the end of something deeper, a cycle, turning a silence. For now though, it continues, watching, ticking, whispering, measuring not just hours, but echoes. The map that shouldn't exist, the puzzle of Piri race maps, are meant to guide us to show the known, the named, the seen. But some maps do the opposite. They lead not outward, but inward, into questions no compass can answer. One such map, drawn by a forgotten admiral on the edge of an empire, shows lands he should not have known, with precision no one can explain. It is not what the map reveals, but how that keeps it wrapped in silence. In 1929, inside the vast halls of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, a rolled-up piece of gazelle skin was discovered behind a cabinet. It was old, fragile, and marked with faint inks. What lay upon it would ignite one of the greatest cartographic mysteries in history. It was a map, a world map, signed by an Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, dated 1513. The map was astonishing, not only because it depicted known lands of the early 16th century, but because it appeared to show parts of South America and even Antarctica in remarkable detail. Antarctica, which wasn't officially discovered until 1818, over 300 years later. And more strangely, the coastline on the Piri race map appears, not as it looks today, buried under miles of ice, but as it would be if the ice were gone, revealing inlets, bays, and terrain scientists only confirmed in the 20th century using seismic equipment. How could this be? Piri Reis himself offers clues in notes scrawled across the parchment. He claimed his map was based on about 20 source maps, some from ancient times, including Greek, Arabic, and possibly Phoenician records. He wrote that some of his sources dated back to the era of Alexander the Great, but none of those original maps have ever been found. Scholars have verified that Piri Reis was real, a brilliant admiral, geographer, and cartographer in the Ottoman Empire. His surviving works include a detailed book on navigation and other maps that were remarkably accurate for their time. But the 1513 map stands apart. Not only does it show South America's eastern coast with considerable precision, but it also correctly positions the mouth of the Amazon River, something European cartographers wouldn't fully chart until much later. Even more curious, some experts argue that projection used on the map suggests spherical trigonometry, indicating knowledge of around Earth and complex geometry. But how could such mathematical techniques, supposedly unknown to Ottoman cartographers of the time, appear so precisely? Over the years, the mystery deepened. In the 1960s, a U.S. Air Force cartographer named Captain Arlington Mallory analyzed the map and concluded that its southern landmass bore a strong resemblance to Queen Maud Land, a region of Antarctica. He further claimed that the depiction matched seismic surveys conducted by Swedish and British teams beneath the Antarctic ice dot. Critics argue that the Antarctica shown on the map is merely a distorted South America. Others insist the coastline is too accurate to be coincidence. Some even speculate that Piri Reis had access to lost ancient maps, perhaps from a forgotten civilization with seafaring knowledge we have not yet rediscovered. But there are no clear answers, only a thin piece of gazelle skin, drawn in red and black ink, dotted with sea monsters and curious notes. The writing is a mix of Ottoman, Turkish and Arabic, and near the bottom, an inscription reads, "No one today knows more about these lands than I." Piri Reis was later executed by his own empire, accused of failure during a naval campaign. His knowledge, his sources, and his secrets vanished with him. The map remains, torn, fragmentary, but impossible to dismiss. It is not proof, it is possibility, glimpse of something older than what we've been told. A whisper that says, we once knew more, and now, we've forgotten. Today, the Piri Reis map is locked behind glass, watched by cameras, studied in silence, and every time we look at it, really look, we're not just peering at a coastline, we're tracing the edge of our memory. The choir that vanished, the soundless mass of Roanoke. There was once a village carved from wilderness, wooden fences, crude cabins, and gardens sown with hope. It stood quiet, awaiting its settlers' return. But when they arrived, there were no cries, no laughter, no smoke rising from chimneys, only silence. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just a single word carved into wood, a name, not a message. Roanoke, the colony that left behind no answers, only air where voices should have been. In the late 16th century, as England pushed to establish its presence in the New World, a small group of settlers set sail across the Atlantic, chasing a dream of land and opportunity. Led by John White, they reached the shores of present-day North Carolina, settling on Roanoke Island in 1587. Among them were men, women, and children, over 100 souls, including White's own granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. Resources were scarce, tensions with local tribes rose, and so, shortly after establishing the colony, White returned to England to gather supplies, expecting to return in a few months. But war intervened. The conflict with Spain prevented his return for 3 years. When he finally made it back in 1590, what he found was not devastation, but emptiness. The colony was gone. The fort was dismantled, not destroyed. The homes were missing, not burnt, but carefully removed, as if packed up by invisible hands. No bones, no graves, no signs of violence, just a whisper of a settlement. Erased and carved into a wooden post at the site's entrance. A single word, Croatoan, and on a nearby tree, Crow. No cross, no distress symbols, just that strange name. White assumed it meant the settlers had relocated to Croton Island, now Hatteras Island, to live with the native Croatan tribe, a possibility encouraged by earlier contact and diplomacy. But storms and limited resources prevented him from ever investigating fully, and he never saw his family again. Centuries passed, historians searched, archaeologists dug, but nothing definitive ever emerged. Some believe the settlers integrated with local tribes, explaining the later reports of Native Americans with gray eyes and European features in the region. Yet no direct lineage or cultural trace has been confirmed. Others suggest the colony migrated inland, perhaps attempting to survive in smaller groups, only to succumb to illness, starvation, or conflict. And then there are the stranger theories, that the colony fell victim to witchcraft, or was abducted by an unknown force. That the settlers found something on the island, or beneath it, and chose to disappear into it. That the word Croatoan was not a location, but a warning. That Roanoke wasn't lost by chance, but by choice. In 1937, a series of engraved stones, known as the Dare Stones, began to surface in Georgia and the Carolinas, claiming to be messages from Virginia Dare herself, describing the settlers' journey, hardship, and death. Some were later dismissed as forgeries, Others remain controversial, but none have offered certainty. Even modern LiDAR scanning and deep archaeology have failed to reveal the full truth. The Earth seems to hold its breath over Roanoke, as if keeping its silence out of respect, and in a strange twist, the word Croatoan has appeared. Elsewhere in history, it was reportedly found scrawled in the journal of the pirate Blackbeard before his death. It was the last word uttered by poet Edgar Allan Poe before his mysterious passing. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps the word, like the colony, is a fragment of a pattern we don't yet see. Today, the site of Roanoke is peaceful. Birds nest in the trees, grass sways where cabins once stood, and visitors walk along worn paths, imagining children's voices, the ring of hammers, the scent of bread baking. But it's all imagination, because Roanoke left nothing behind. No cries, no graves, just the absence of sound, a vanished choir, and a single carved word, fading in the wood. The lights that never burn out, the eternal flames of ancient tombs deep beneath layers of stone and sorrow, past sarcophagi and silence, their once flickered lights that should not have burned, not for days, but for centuries, sealed away in tombs, untouched by wind or wick. They glowed in the dark like whispers of forgotten science, or something more. Flames without fuel, illumination without explanation, lights that died only when opened to the world, long before electricity, long before gas lamps or the science of combustion. There were stories of eternal flames, burning quietly in temples and tombs across the ancient world. We often dismiss such stories as metaphor, symbols of soul or memory. But what if some were true? Across ancient civilizations from Egypt and Rome to India and China, we find strange reports of lamps that burned endlessly, sealed in tombs for hundreds, even thousands, of years. One of the earliest accounts comes from the Roman author Pliny the Elder, who described a lamp found still burning in the tomb of a daughter of a nobleman. The flame had no visible source of fuel. It extinguished only when the chamber was opened. Later, during the time of the Roman Empire, St. Augustine mentioned a flame that burned in an Egyptian temple for over 600 years, untouched by the wind or human hand. Even more curious are the reports from the Middle Ages, when tombs of ancient figures were unearthed. In one account, workers opening a sealed sepulchre discovered a still-burning lamp suspended above the body. As fresh air rushed in, the flame suddenly flickered and died, as though it had been waiting in solitude, only for silence. How could this be? Modern science would say, it can't. No known material can burn for centuries without oxygen, maintenance, or fuel. Even the most efficient oil lamps would be exhausted within days. And yet, these stories persist, detailed, documented, and scattered across continents. Some theories suggest the ancients may have developed an early form of chemical, reaction-based lighting, using phosphorescent minerals, slow oxidation processes, or clever wicking systems lost to time. Others posit the use of asbestos-based wicks dipped in mysterious oils, a possibility considered by some 19th-century researchers who examined ancient remains of long-lasting lamps. But none of these explain the duration, hundreds of years, inside airtight tombs, without degradation or oxygen. A more esoteric theory suggests that these lamps were fueled by alchemy, the lost science of transforming matter, energy, and spirit, that they were not just lights, but symbols, keys, devices tied to ancient rituals designed to preserve energy or soul beyond time. In India, sacred texts speak of jyoti, or eternal flames, which once burned in the depths of temples, lit during cosmic events and maintained without visible fuel. Some believe they harnessed ambient energy, vibrations, magnetic flows, or divine frequency, words we now associate with metaphor, but which once may have had a literal meaning. Could it be that ancient knowledge once brushed up against a kind of science we've yet to rediscover, a science not based on combustion, but resonance? Or were these eternal flames a myth, legends born from the wonder of a brief, unexplained glow in the dark? Still, archaeologists continue to find lamp-shaped objects in sealed tombs across Egypt and Mesopotamia, some carefully placed, others broken and silent, their wicks long vanished, their oil long dried. But what they might have once done, we can no longer say. There are no photographs of flames, no proof, only accounts, descriptions, and the echo of firelight on ancient stone. Today, the phrase eternal flame survives in poetry, on monuments, in songs, but the real flames, if they ever existed, are gone. Perhaps because we opened the tombs. Or perhaps because we no longer know how to tend to such fires. What remains is the mystery of heat without smoke, of glow without spark, of a time when darkness was not chased by flame but greeted by it, already waiting in silence. The cave that breathes the living walls of Chislehurst's beneath the earth, where daylight never reaches and footsteps echo like memory. There is a cave that inhales and exhales, not with lungs, but with stone. The deeper you go, the louder it gets, as if the rock itself remembers something it cannot say aloud. Chislehurst caves are not just tunnels. They are a question carved into silence. In the quiet town of Chislehurst, just outside of London, lies a hidden world, miles of man-made caves, twisting beneath the ground like the forgotten arteries of some ancient mind. These are the Chislehurst Caves, a network of dark, narrow passageways that stretch for over 20 miles, carved not by nature, but by hands, though no one knows exactly when they began. Some say the caves date back to Druidic times, over 2,000 years ago, carved by Celtic tribes for rituals, burials, or protection. Others suggest they were first cut during the Roman occupation, used for chalk and flint extraction. Then there are theories of medieval miners, digging in the dark for building materials, unaware they were adding chapters to a mystery that would never fully be written. What is known is that by the early 20th century, the caves had become more than ruins. They were alive with stories. During World War I, they were used for ammunition storage. By World War II, they had transformed into an underground city. Thousands of people lived here, taking shelter from the German air raids. Families brought furniture underground. Children were born here. Weddings were performed. Songs echoed in the dark. And yet, even then, something about the caves felt off. The air inside shifts suddenly, and without reason. Guides have described the sensation as if the cave is breathing. Not wind, not drafts, but slow, rhythmic changes in pressure and sound, like the chest of something sleeping beneath the soil. There are no animals inside, no running water, just stillness and the occasional, inexplicable noise, knocks, distant whispers, and sounds of footsteps when no one is near. Over the years, reports of paranormal activity have surfaced. Visitors describe feeling watched. Others speak of a deep vibration in the rock like music without sound. Some refuse to return. One of the most mysterious areas is known as the Druid Altar, a raised stone platform in a circular chamber. Its origin is unknown. Some claim it was a site of ritual. Others say it's simply a product of mining. But when people stand upon it, their voices carried differently, softer, slower, as if the cave listens more closely in that space. No electromagnetic anomalies have been officially documented, and yet digital devices fail in parts of the tunnel. Batteries drain, lights flicker. In 1939, a psychic named Sybil Leek claimed she heard voices in the deepest parts of the cave, voices chanting in languages she could not recognize. She reported seeing echoes, not ghosts, but imprints of moments left behind in the stone, like memories trapped in walls. Could the cave itself hold memory? Geologists call this idea impossible. Stone does not remember. But what if time leaves fingerprints? In 2004, a documentary crew set out to record in the caves for several nights. Audio picked up low tones, rhythmic and strange, not from their equipment, but from the silence itself. The files were reviewed, cleaned, and studied. The patterns did not match machines. They matched breathing. Today, the caves are open to visitors. Tours are offered by lantern light. The air is cool, dry, and still. But as you walk deeper, something changes. The sound shifts. Your ears begin to ring, not from pressure, but from quiet. And when you reach the deepest chambers, far from the entrance, far from the light, the air presses against your skin like a whisper. The guide says it's natural, but the silence says otherwise. And when you finally emerge back into the daylight, the world feels louder than it should, as if you've just left behind something that wasn't finished speaking. The tomb that tried to stay closed, the curse of the unopened doors. Some doors are built not to be opened, but to be left untouched, sealed with purpose. And when the curious grow bolder than the silent, something in the air begins to shift. In the temple of Padmanabhaswamy, there is such a door. Behind it lies either gold or something the world is not ready to remember. And still, it remains closed, in the southern Indian state of Kerala, hidden among the palms and stone. There stands a temple older than most memory, the Sri Padmanabhaswamy Temple, a place of worship, mystery, and immeasurable wealth, built in the 6th century. Renovated over the centuries by various dynasties, the temple is dedicated to Lord Vishnu, portrayed reclining on the great serpent Ananta, the Endless One. Its architecture is draped in Dravidian elegance, tall gopurams, winding corridors, and sanctums rich in silence. But its most astonishing feature lies beneath. In 2011, the Indian Supreme Court ordered the temple's secret vaults to be hidden for centuries. These underground chambers were known only to a few, whispered about, guarded fiercely by priests and kings. 6 vaults were identified, labeled A through F. Most were opened under strict supervision. Inside them, gold, jewels, statues, coins, garlands made of diamonds, ancient ceremonial attire stitched with rubies. The treasures were said to be worth over $20 billion, making it perhaps the richest temple on earth. But Vault B was different. The doorway was sealed with iron bars, a thick granite arch, and a mysterious emblem, a coiled serpent carved into the stone. Unlike the others, it had no bolts, no hinges, just the stillness that resisted sound. The priests refused to open it. They claimed it was not just a vault, but a sacred threshold, protected by mantras, known as Nagabandham, the serpent seal. According to legend, the door could only be opened by chanting the Garuda mantra, and only by a true, realized sage, not an ordinary mortal. They warned that disturbing the chamber would invoke divine wrath, that opening it by force, through science or tools, would lead not to wealth, but to misfortune. And so, Vault B remained shut. Attempts were made. In 2016, a team tried using ground-penetrating radar to study the space behind the door. The findings: a void, a chamber, possibly a second chamber within the first, but no one knows what lies inside. Some believe it holds even greater treasures than those already found, a mountain of gold hidden in darkness. Others suggest ancient scrolls and relics that predate recorded Indian history, and a few whispered that the vault is not a treasure room at all, but a containment chamber, not meant to be opened, but to be left alone. For decades, stories have persisted that the door is protected, not just physically, but spiritually, with vibrations that resist technology, that engineers who approached with instruments fell ill, that strange sounds were heard near the sealed wall, not machinery, but chanting, from no visible source. Of course, skeptics say these are just stories, echoes of myth. But myth is not always a lie. Sometimes it's memory, written in symbols. What is known as this? For over 1,000 years, no ruler, no priest, no army has dared open Vault B by force. Even the courts, after years of legal debate, stepped back. It remains closed to this day, a doorway beneath a temple, not locked, not chained, just waiting. When visitors walk the marble halls of Padmanabhaswamy, they can feel it, the hum behind stone, a presence behind the door, not sinister, not angry, just still, heavy with purpose, as if the door itself understands time better than we do. And maybe that's the real mystery, not what's inside, but why it hasn't been opened. Because in a world that always chooses curiosity over caution, why, after all this time, has this door remained untouched? Perhaps some silence is sacred, the city that sinks in silence, the drowned temples of Dwarka beneath the waves, where sunlight dances on forgotten stone. There are cities that do not breathe, yet still speak, not with voice, but with shape, with carvings, with memories, carved into coral and time. Off the western coast of India, a city sleeps beneath the sea, too old for records, too real to ignore. Dwarka, the city that slipped between myth and ocean. In the sacred epics of India, there is mention of a city unlike any other. Dwarka, the legendary kingdom of Lord Krishna, a city of golden walls, celestial towers, and divine order. According to the ancient Sanskrit text Mahabharata, Krishna built Dwarka to protect his people. It was a city born of purpose, majestic, fortified, and shining under the heavens. But when Krishna left the world, the ocean swallowed Dwarka whole. For centuries, scholars debated whether the story was allegory, a spiritual tale symbolizing the end of an era. Mainstream historians treated Dwarka as myth, a place of the gods, not of man. Then, in the early 2000s, everything changed. Off the coast of Gujarat, near modern-day Dwarka, marine archaeologists began to explore the shallow waters. What they found stunned the scientific world. At depths of 20 to 40 feet, structures began to emerge. Stone walls, steps, columns, and grids resembling streets and foundations. These formations were man-made, aligned, geometrically, crafted with design. Scattered among them, terracotta pieces, beads, tools, and pottery shards. Carbon dating on some artifacts suggested they were at least 9,000 years old. That's older than the Egyptian pyramids, older than Mesopotamia, older than any known civilization. How could such a city exist beneath the ocean, in a place long dismissed as legend? Some researchers believe these ruins represent a forgotten chapter of early Indian civilization, perhaps even a precursor to the Indus Valley culture. Others argued that seismic activity, such as a massive earthquake or tsunami, may have submerged the city. But deeper questions rise with the tides. Why do the ruins align so closely with the descriptions from the Mahabharata? The text says Dwarka was built on land reclaimed from the sea, fortified with 6 walls, and later consumed by the ocean in a single night. The underwater ruins appear to match this description, including evidence of multiple concentric structures, suggesting a city designed in layers. Even the location off the Gomti River matches the ancient accounts. And then there's the silence. Despite the magnitude of the discovery, mainstream historical texts remain cautious. There is resistance to rewriting timelines, resistance to acknowledging that civilization, as we define it, may be far older and far more complex than we've been taught. But the ocean doesn't lie. It keeps its secrets, but never forgets them. Divers who descend into the turquoise waters of modern Dwarka describe a feeling not just of exploration, but of reverence. The stones are not just fallen. They feel placed, as if in conversation with the sea. Temples now steps leading to nowhere, pillars that once held lamps or prayers. The Indian government has since protected the site. Underwater tours are restricted, and yet the mystery remains largely unexplored. Because what would it mean if Dwarka was real, that a city mentioned in sacred texts is not a parable, but a place, that myth and memory are not so separate after all, that beneath the sea lie not ruins, but reminders of a time when the world moved differently, spoke in different terms, and wrote its truths in stone and water. Today, the waves move gently over Dwarka. Fish swim between the pillars. Light filters down in shifting beams, tracing ancient carvings that no longer have names. And somewhere, in the stillness beneath the waves, a story continues, unread, undisturbed, waiting for us to remember. The book with no ending, the unfinished prophecies of Mother Shipton's. Some futures arrive quietly, others scream from ink, but a few are whispered in rhymes, fragile, half-finished, and centuries ahead of their time. In the damp caves of Yorkshire, a crooked woman once scribbled visions into verse, seeing not just tomorrow, but centuries that hadn't been born. And though time has walked far from her days, her words still follow. In the shadowed woodlands of Knaresborough, England, where stone meets mist and rivers whisper over ancient beds, there lies a cave, known for its petrifying waters, a place where objects turn to stone. But it is not the water that draws the curious. It is the legend of a woman born inside it. Her name was Ursula Steele, though the world came to know her as Mother Shipton, born in 1488. As legend tells, she was disfigured from birth, twisted of limb, with a sharp chin, wild eyes, and a crooked back. Her mother, only 15 at the time, was accused of consorting with devils. She refused to name the father. Ursula was raised in secrecy, whispered about as a witch child, feared and mocked, but watched closely. Even as a girl, they said she could predict things before they happened, and as she grew, so did her visions. She spoke in riddles and rhymes, obscure prophecies that spoke of fire and flight, of iron roads, floating castles, and wars that would darken the sky. To those who listened carefully, her verses seemed to describe the rise of technology, aeroplanes, submarines, and even world wars, centuries before they came. One verse reads, "Carriages without horses shall go, and accidents fill the world with woe. Around the world thoughts shall fly, in the twinkling of an eye." To many, this sounds eerily like cars, an instant global communication. Another, the world to an end shall come, in 1881. That year passed without catastrophe, or so it seemed, but believers suggest her dates were miscopied or retranslated, and that the warning may be symbolic, referencing an age of decay, not destruction. Still, historians are skeptical. There is no solid evidence that the prophecies attributed to Mother Shipton were written during her lifetime. The earliest known printed versions appeared many decades after her death, often edited or updated to suit the mood of the times. Some say the verses were forged in the 17th and 18th centuries by pamphlet writers, looking to profit off fear and fascination. But that doesn't explain the consistency. How so many of the predictions, even across different versions, share a singular voice, a poetic rhythm, a mind caught between the past and future. Some of her words are oddly specific, others hauntingly vague. They speak of towers in the sky that burn and fall, men who walk beneath the sea, a silver serpent crossing the world in minutes, a time when iron shall float like wood and the world's riches shall turn to smoke. Were these metaphors, or glimpses of a future yet unshaped? To this day, Mother Shipton's prophecy book remains a puzzle. No single original manuscript has ever been confirmed. Copies are scattered, handwritten, printed, edited, like fragments of a dream. But her cave is real. Visitors still walk the damp stone steps into the place of her birth. The petrifying well, with its heavy mineral waters, still turns hanging objects to stone within months. Teddy bears' shoes, hats hardened by nature's slow touch. Some claim the cave has a feeling, not dark, but watchful, as if her spirit still lingers, peering gently through time. Others come seeking guidance, leaving notes, prayers, questions. But the most intriguing mystery of all, Mother Shipton never wrote her final prophecy. According to legend, her last vision, a glimpse of the end of time itself, was so terrifying, so absolute, that she spoke it only once, and never allowed it to be written. Instead, she whispered it to the wind outside her cave, then fell silent forever. What did she see? What words did time take from her? We may never know, but her rhymes remain, floating through centuries like forgotten melodies, hinting, warning, dreaming. Not prophecy, perhaps, but memory, written too early. The tower that hums the silent experiments of Nikola Tesla in the pine-covered hills of Long Island. A strange tower once stood, tall, skeletal, humming with unseen power. It was not built for communication, but for connection, for lighting the world without wires, for reaching across oceans without a whisper. The man who built it said he could shake the earth. But then, the tower fell silent, and its secrets were buried under time. In the early 1900s, amid a world still discovering the power of electricity, one man dreamed far beyond wires and switches. Nikola Tesla, inventor, visionary, and often misunderstood, believed that energy could be transmitted wirelessly, freely, and endlessly across the planet. And to prove it, he built a tower. Its name was Wardenclyffe, rising 187 feet above Shoreham, Long Island, with a deep shaft plunging 120 feet underground. The tower looked like something out of another era, like a cross between a lighthouse and a tuning fork, made not for ships or sound, but for frequencies. Unknown to most, construction began in 1901, funded by industrialist J.P. Morgan, who thought Tesla was building a wireless communication system, something to compete with Marconi's radio. But Tesla had other plans. He believed the Earth itself could conduct electricity, that it could be tapped into and used to send power through the ground and air, anywhere on Earth, without loss, without wires. He called it the World Wireless System, and Wardenclyffe was his prototype. Tesla once said, "When wireless is fully applied, the Earth will be converted into a huge brain. We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance." But soon, the truth became clear to his investors. Tesla wasn't just trying to send signals. He wanted to send power for free. J.P. Morgan reportedly asked, "If anyone can draw power, where do we put the meter?" Funding was cut, construction halted. The tower, half complete, never broadcast to the world. Tesla's laboratory, filled with strange machines, coil systems, and spiraling currents of blue light, began to decay. The dream crumbled in slow silence. And in 1917, the tower was dismantled and sold for scrap. But before it fell, strange things were said to have happened. Locals claimed the tower would hum at night, a deep, low vibration that made nearby farm animals restless. Some reported luminous shapes flickering around the tower's apex. Even though no power was officially running, Tesla himself hinted at breakthroughs, never revealed devices that could draw energy from the ionosphere, inventions that could illuminate the sky, and systems that could allow people to communicate with planets. He claimed to receive signals, possibly extraterrestrial in origin, which he recorded in notebooks never fully published. Were they just interference, misread transmissions, or was Tesla touching something the world wasn't ready for? Today, Wardenclyffe no longer exists. Only the foundation remains buried beneath trees and whispers. In recent years, efforts have been made to restore the site into a museum, a symbol, not just of Tesla's brilliance, but of a future we never claimed. Because what if he was right? What if the Earth could be wired, not by cables, but by resonance? What if the secrets of Wardenclyffe weren't destroyed, just delayed? And what if, buried beneath those Long Island woods, in forgotten notebooks and silent machines, lie echoes of a frequency still waiting to be heard? In a time of towers that blink and buzz, it's easy to forget the one that hummed, softly, briefly, and was never meant to end. The tomb that moves the shifting stones of Barbados graves are supposed to be still, quiet places where the past rests beneath the soil. But on one small island, inside a sealed vault of heavy stone, something refuses to stay put. Coffins shift, lidless boxes slide, as if tugged by unseen hands. And when the vault is opened, the silence is heavier than before. The story begins on the sunlit island of Barbados, in the parish of Christchurch, where salt winds drift over coral stone and time seems to move slowly, except, it seems, beneath the floor of one particular tomb. It is known as the Chase Vault, named after a wealthy plantation family who began using the crypt in the early 1800s, built of thick coral limestone. The vault lies partially underground, sealed by an immense slab of blue marble that requires several men to move. The tomb was meant to be final, a sealed chamber for the dead, heavy with stone and certainty, but certainty would not hold. The first to be buried there was a woman named Thomasina Goddard in 1807. Then, in 1808, Dorcas Chase, a young daughter of the Chase family, was interred. Soon after came her father, Thomas Chase, whose death in 1812 was met with unease. He was reportedly a cruel man, and his passing stirred little grief. It was during the burial of Thomas Chase that the mystery began. When the vault was opened to receive the coffin, those present noticed that the other coffins, previously placed carefully in the tomb, had moved. Dorcas's small lead coffin was now propped up against a wall. Goddard's casket was tilted unnaturally, no sign of disturbance at the entrance, no forced entry. The heavy marble seal had not been touched. Perplexed, the workers rearranged the coffins, resealed the vault, and carried on. But the movements continued. Each time the tomb was reopened for another interment, the coffins were displaced, often violently. Some were flipped upside down, others had smashed against the walls. Lead coffins, hundreds of pounds each, appeared to have been tossed like twigs. Panic spread through the island. Rumors bloomed. Some claimed earthquakes were to blame, others suspected flooding or vandalism. But again and again, the seal showed no signs of tampering, and the floor remained dry and undisturbed. Eventually, the colonial governor of Barbados, Lord Combermere, ordered an official investigation. The vault was emptied, its contents recorded and carefully arranged. A fine layer of white sand was spread on the floor to detect any future movement or footprints. The entrance was sealed with melted wax, bearing the governor's own signet. And then, silence. For months, the tomb remained untouched, until the vault was reopened, and the scene was identical to before. The coffins were scattered, as if hurled by invisible hands. The sand showed no footprints, human or animal. The seal was intact. The mystery, still, complete. Frightened, the Chase family removed all remains and abandoned the vault. It has never been used again. To this day, the Chase vault remains empty. Tourists visit its shaded hill. Locals speak of it in quiet tones. A story passed from generation to generation, part history, part haunting. Was it a natural phenomenon? Gas pressure? Seismic vibrations? If so, why did it affect only this tomb? Why only when it was sealed? No other vaults nearby have ever reported such activity. Others whisper darker theories of curses, of unrest, of spirits that refuse to be entombed beside a cruel patriarch, that perhaps the dead were trying to escape, or trying to say something, or maybe it was never about the dead at all. Maybe the stone itself remembers. Maybe the island breathes through its coral bones. Maybe some places are not meant to hold silence, only motion. The language of the winds, the forgotten whistles of La Gomera high above the valleys of a remote island, where cliffs echo with silence and mist drapes the mountaintops. Voices once danced upon the wind, but they weren't spoken. They were whistled. In La Gomera, a forgotten tongue once soared through the sky, a language without words, yet filled with meaning, a language the mountains still remember. On the island of La Gomera, one of Spain's Canary Islands, a strange and beautiful sound used to float across the hills, a whistling language, known as Silbo Gomero. It was not music, it was conversation. Shepherds and farmers developed it to communicate across vast valleys and rugged terrain, where voices could not carry, but whistles could. The sound could travel up to 5 kilometers across the open landscape. It wasn't just general signals, it was a full language, with syntax, grammar, and vocabulary. People could discuss daily life, share news, even argue, all through whistling tones. But as modern technology arrived, Silbo Gomero began to fade. Radios, cell phones, and roads replaced the need for airborne speech. By the 20th century, the language was nearing extinction. What's stranger still, similar whistling languages existed in parts of Turkey, Mexico, the Amazon, and northern Africa, places with no known connection to La Gomera. How could such a specific communication form emerge in such distant cultures? Were they influenced by trade, by ancient migration, or did they all rediscover something older? Some researchers believe whistled speech may predate modern spoken languages, an echo from the time before writing, when humans used the environment itself as a conduit for thought. In the cliffs of La Gomera, the winds still carry fragments of that speech, used now in demonstrations, schools, and traditions. Silbo Gomero has been declared a masterpiece of oral and intangible heritage by UNESCO, yet something about it feels deeper, as if it holds a code, a frequency, a natural rhythm that we once knew and forgot. Some locals say the language is not merely human-made, that it was learned from the wind itself. And if you stand in the valley just before sunrise, when all is still, you may hear a single note slide across the trees, a whisper with no source, as though the mountains are speaking again and remembering. The forest that whispers back the soundless messages of Aokigarat, the base of a sleeping mountain. Wrapped in silence and tangled roots, there is a forest that listens more than it speaks. Not haunted, but heavy, as if the ground itself remembers too much. Aokigahara is not cursed, it is waiting, with trees so thick they steal the wind, and moss-covered paths that lead nowhere but inward. Nestled at the foot of Mount Fuji, Japan's most iconic volcano, lies a forest known as Aokigahara, the sea of trees, a place so dense, even the sun struggles to reach the forest floor. Birds go quiet here, the wind fades, and somewhere between the mossy stones and silent branches, something else begins to stir. The forest has earned a darker nickname over time, the Suicide Forest, due to the high number of people who have ended their lives within its borders. But to focus only on that would miss a deeper mystery, because Aokigahara has always been strange. Ancient texts describe it as Urano Mori, the ghost forest. Even centuries ago, locals told stories of people getting lost, of compasses spinning erratically, of strange noises in the deep. Some believed it was haunted by Ure, the restless spirits of those who died in suffering. Others said the forest had a magnetic pull, not of metal, but of mind. That once inside, people felt emotions differently, time differently. Modern studies have shown that lava flows from past eruptions of Mount Fuji have hardened beneath the surface, forming magnetic anomalies that can interfere with compasses. But that doesn't explain the rest. Why do people report hearing voices not loud, but soft, almost inside the skull? Why do experienced hikers, trained in orientation, still disappear? In 2010, a team of Japanese researchers conducted a sound mapping experiment within the forest. Using sensitive audio equipment, they recorded the ambient noise of various locations throughout Aokigahara. In several recordings, they detected low-frequency sounds barely audible, but patterned, not animal, not mechanical, something like breathing. These sounds were not present in other forests nearby. A second investigation found that echoes behaved oddly in Aokigahara. Sound appears to absorb, not reflect, making the forest one. of the quietest natural places on Earth. Even footsteps are swallowed after a few meters. This creates a unique psychological effect: disorientation, a heightened inner voice, and a loss of sense of direction. Some say this silence opens a door, not to ghosts, but to something deeper. The forest is dotted with signs in Japanese. Your life is precious. Think of your family. You are not alone. But Aokigahara does not push people toward despair. It mirrors what is already there. Locals have long believed the forest is alive, not in the poetic sense, but literally. Trees grow unnaturally twisted. Roots tangle above ground, like fingers reaching through the soil. Moss grows faster here than in surrounding regions, even without more light or water. And then there are the tapes. In 2017, a filmmaker exploring Aokigahara found a bundle of cassette tapes buried beneath a tree, wrapped in plastic. The recordings were garbled, often nonsensical, but some segments featured a voice whispering in Japanese, repeating the same word over and over. Kikoeteru, I hear you. No owner was found, no explanation given, and yet, the phrase felt, strangely, mutual, because if there's one thing people agree on, it's this: when you walk into Aokigahara, the forest knows, it listens, it observes without judgment, and perhaps it responds. Some who go in return changed, not harmed, but humbled. Others leave behind strings of colored tape, marking their paths in case they lose their way. Red, blue, yellow, human threads in a green labyrinth. But some paths end abruptly, tape-torn, no sound, only trees, pressing in close, waiting. Not unkind, not cruel. Just ancient. Just aware. In a world that never stops speaking, Aokigahara remains one of the few places that still listens, and perhaps that is the true mystery, not the deaths, but the dialogue, between earth and soul, between silence and self. The city that sleeps beneath ice, the frozen echoes of Greenland's camp century. Beneath the vast white silence of Greenland's ice sheet, something ancient and forgotten rests. A city once built by human hands, now frozen beneath meters of ice. But it wasn't just any city. It was secret, it was moving, and it carried power not meant to be buried. The echoes of camp centuries still hum below the frost, waiting for someone to remember. In the early 1960s, during the quiet storm of the Cold War, the United States embarked on an operation hidden in the coldest corners of the world. They called it Camp Century. Built beneath the Greenland ice sheet, one of the most remote and hostile environments on Earth, the camp was meant to be a scientific station. Above ground, it looked like a simple outpost, but below, a vast network of ice tunnels, barracks, labs, and storage chambers was carved into the glacier. Engineers used massive snow cutters to create an underground city that could house over 200 people. But Camp Century had a secret. Its real purpose was not just research, it was part of Project Iceworm, a covert military initiative to install intercontinental ballistic missiles (ICBMs) beneath the ice, close to the Soviet Union, undetectable by satellites. The plan was ambitious and dangerous. The entire base ran on nuclear power, transported in a portable reactor called PM2AI, one of the first of its kind. But the ice began to shift, tunnels warped, ceilings cracked, and equipment began to fail. The glacier, ancient and alive, resisted the human presence inside it. By 1967, Camp Century was abandoned, its reactor dismantled and removed, or so the official reports claim. The rest of the camp, including toxic waste, radioactive coolant, diesel fuel, and untold military secrets, was left behind, buried in the ice. Today, more than 50 years later, the site is once again in focus. Because climate change is melting the Greenland ice sheet. And Camp Century is slowly beginning to surface. Researchers worry that as the ice recedes, decades, nuclear and chemical waste could leak into the Arctic environment. But there are deeper fears too, about what else might resurface. Some claim hidden data from the camp was never recovered, or that parts of Project Iceworm were quietly continued elsewhere. Others suggest the US built more than one such city, and Camp Century was merely the prototype. There are even theories that classified experiments took place there, involving geophysical weapons, weather modification, or deep Earth surveillance. The truth lies deep beneath the ice, in tunnels now collapsed and records now redacted. And in Greenland's white silence, where wind carves endless dunes of frost, something once buried, stirs a city beneath ice, a plan abandoned, but not forgotten. The town that disappeared, the vanishing of Lake Anjikunian, the frozen silence of northern Canada, where the sky burns with green auroras and the snow falls like dust over centuries. There was once a village beside a lake. Lights flickered. In the distance, smoke curled from chimneys. And then, nothing. No sound, no struggle, no goodbye. An entire community gone, as if it had been quietly erased from the map of time. The year was 1930, and a trapper named Joe LaBelle was trekking through the icy wilderness of Nunavut, near the still and silver-blue waters of Lake Anjikunian. He knew the land well, the trails, the creaks of the ice, the patterns of the stars, and he knew the Anjikuni Inuit village that lay ahead. He'd visited before, shared stories, slept under fur tents, warmed by firelight. A small, thriving community of hunters and families, quiet, kind, self-sufficient. But as he approached the village that night, something felt wrong. There were no voices, no barking sled dogs, no firelight dancing behind the flaps of tents. Just snow, stillness, and the unsettling hum of a silence that didn't belong. Joe entered the village. Every dwelling was empty. Food sat undisturbed over dead fires. Clothing and supplies were neatly arranged. Sleds and tools remained exactly where they had been left. Even rifles, considered sacred for survival in the harsh wilderness, were untouched. But there were no people. He searched for signs of a journey, footprints, sled tracks, broken ice, nothing. The snow was smooth and undisturbed, as if no one had left at all. Even stranger, he found the village dogs all dead, frozen in the snow, still tied to their posts. They had not been released. They had not wandered. They had starved. Silently, Joe LaBelle fled the village in fear, reporting the incident to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, who launched an investigation. What they found only deepened the mystery. The graves in the village cemetery had been dug up, not by animals, but with precision. Empty, not one body remained. There were no signs of violence, no signs of illness, no struggle, no clues, just absence. The official RCMP report dismissed the story, claiming it had been exaggerated. They insisted no such mass disappearance had occurred. But other reports, including those from early newspaper archives and local accounts, contradict the official stance. Some skeptics believe the tale was a myth, perhaps the blending of different events into one eerie folklore, but others point to consistent, specific details passed down in regional oral histories. And then, there were the lights. Joe LaBelle claimed that the night before reaching the village, he saw strange blue lights flickering in the sky above the lake, brighter than stars, moving too quickly to be natural. Locals have long spoken of sky visitors in the region, luminous shapes that descend over the tundra, make no sound, and leave the snow untouched. Could it have been aurora borealis, ball lightning, imagination, or something else? Theories abound that the community was abducted by extraterrestrial forces, that they had been caught in a rift in time, vanishing between seconds, that a spiritual calling drew them away, a mass departure into another plane. None explained the missing graves. None explained the untouched belongings, the starving dogs, the complete erasure. Today, Lake Anjikuni remains as quiet as ever. Cold winds sweep the ice. The water freezes thick in winter, mirror-like. No village stands on its shores now. Only stone markers and silence. Travelers sometimes report a sensation while near the lake, a feeling of being watched, not by eyes, but by memory, as if the land itself remembers what happened, but chooses not to speak of it. Maybe the village wasn't taken. Maybe it moved. Maybe the people of Anjikuni still live somewhere, just not on our map anymore. Somewhere beyond snow, beyond language, beyond reach. The island where no one returns, the enigma of Oak Island's money, pit beneath layers of earth, stone and sea. There lies a hole that has swallowed men and secrets for over 2 centuries. On a small island off the coast of Nova Scotia, curious hands have dug relentlessly, chasing whispers of gold and ancient codes. The deeper they go, the more the pit refuses to give up its story or its treasure. Oak Island remains one of the world's most persistent mysteries. Nestled in the cold Atlantic waters of Nova Scotia, Canada, lies Oak Island, an unassuming landmass of just under 140 acres, cloaked in trees and draped with mist. But 2 treasure hunters and mystery seekers It is anything but ordinary. The story begins in 1795, when a young boy named Daniel McGuinness discovered a strange depression in the ground. Curious, he began to dig, soon uncovering a layer of logs. Every 10 feet, a pattern too deliberate to be natural. Word spread quickly. A deeper excavation revealed layers of oak platforms, wooden planks, and what appeared to be a complex system of booby traps, flooding tunnels that filled the shaft with seawater whenever attempts were made to reach the bottom. The pit, later named the Money Pit, became a legend. For over 200 years, countless men, from common workers to wealthy investors, have tried to unlock its secrets. They dug, pumped water, and scoured nearby areas for clues. They found mysterious stones etched with symbols, tools that did not fit the era, and strange artifacts, some resembling medieval coins, others ancient carvings. But the deeper the search, the more the pit resisted. Flooding chambers thwarted progress. Collapsing walls buried treasures anew. Disappearances and tragedies touched those who dared to probe its depths. Several people lost their lives. Many theories try to explain Oak Island's enigma, that it is a pirate's treasure hoard, possibly hidden by Captain Kidd or Blackbeard, that it contains Knights Templar relics, buried with sacred texts, or even the Holy Grail, that it is a natural sinkhole, and the artifacts are coincidental or planted, that it was a secret storage site for the Freemasons, laden with symbols and coded messages. Some even suggest an ancient pre-colonial origin, a hidden archive of a lost civilization. Despite numerous digs, modern technology like sonar scans and ground-penetrating radar has failed to produce a definitive conclusion. Oak Island is littered with pits, tunnels, and markers, many man-made, others natural, making it a complex labyrinth of earth and myth. Perhaps the greatest mystery is the absence of any recovered treasure commensurate with the effort expended. If riches lie below, why have none surfaced? If none lie below, why has the pit fascinated generations for so long? Some say the treasure is a metaphor, a quest not for gold, but for knowledge. Others whisper of a curse, a guardian spirit that protects the pit, punishing the greedy and careless. Today, Oak Island continues to draw adventurers, historians, and dreamers, its forests echoing with picks striking earth and machines pumping water. And beneath it all, the Money Pit waits silent, deep, and unyielding, like a question etched in time. The book that writes itself, the living pages of Codex Obscura. They say some books are written by men, others by time. But there is a book whispered of in hidden circles, a tome no one claims to have authored, yet one that continues to change. Those who read it see different words. Those who return find pages they never saw before, and those who study it for too long often stop speaking altogether. The Codex Obscura is not catalogued in any national archive. It appears only in passing references, footnotes, abandoned library ledgers, or the spoken recollections of those who barely remember. It is said to reside in no permanent location. Some claim it was last seen in a monastery near the Austrian Alps. Others insist it surfaced briefly in a burned-out university wing in Prague during the 1800s. The book is described as bound in weathered black leather, unnaturally cold to the touch, with no author or title, only a single symbol etched into the cover, a spiral within a flame. Inside are pages that defy certainty. Some describe handwritten entries in different languages, some ancient, some modern, some unknown. Others report moving ink, shifting lines of text, diagrams that animate subtly when watched in candlelight, and sections that vanish the moment you look away. One scholar who claimed to possess it for 3 days wrote in his journal, "It knows. It changes depending on who opens it, on what they fear, on what they seek. It is not a book. It is a mirror made of memory and ink." Pages contain maps of places that no longer exist, sunken islands, cities beneath sand, paths through mountains that are no longer there, symbols that glow faintly in moonlight, resembling no known script, sketches of architecture and machines that seem impossible to build or too dangerous to try, detailed accounts of events that historians say never occurred. And always, the last few pages are blank, until, as one story goes, the reader begins to dream of them. There are rumors that the Codex writes back, that if you write a question, an answer appears, but the cost of understanding is forgetting something else. Some readers claimed they lost personal memories, names of loved ones, the feeling of sunlight, the smell of their mother's cooking. Small, vital pieces of themselves traded unconsciously. Others became obsessed, refusing to sleep, claiming the book had shown them the pattern behind time. No known scans or photographs of the Codex Obscura exist. Those who try say that images come out blurred or worse, overwritten with symbols not captured by human technology. To this day, no one knows where the book rests, or if it ever truly existed in one place. But travelers still whisper of it, always with a shiver, as something that finds you, not the other way around. And if, one evening, you discovered a book that wasn't there yesterday, that seems to know your thoughts as you read, close it gently, or turn the page and forget who you were. The labyrinth beneath the sands, the forgotten chambers of Hawara. They say that some structures are built to impress, others to protect, but a few are built to hide. In the heart of Egypt, beneath layers of sand and silence, there may still lie a labyrinth, unlike any other, a place where corridors twisted like thoughts and chambers ran deeper than memory. Most believe it's a myth, yet fragments remain, enough to suggest that beneath the ruins of Hawara, something vast and forgotten still waits. South of Cairo, in the Fayoum region of Egypt, rests a ruined pyramid built by Pharaoh Amenhotep III over 3,800 years ago. Today, it appears as a simple mound of crumbled stone, unimpressive by the standards of Egypt's grand pyramids. But ancient sources tell a different story. The Greek historian Herodotus visited the site in the 5th century BCE. What he described was not a mere ruin, but a marvel. He wrote of a labyrinth, vast beyond comprehension, with 12 great courts, 3,000 chambers, and intricate passages that confused even the most careful explorers. Some rooms were above ground, he said. Others were cut deep into the earth. The walls, he claimed, were adorned with carvings and images beyond imagination. He even said the labyrinth rivaled the pyramids themselves in grandeur and mystery. Other ancient writers, including Pliny the Elder and Strabo, confirmed Herodotus's claims. They too spoke of this labyrinth. And yet, in modern times, almost no trace of such a structure remains. Was it a myth exaggerated by time, or was something hidden? In the 19th century, British archaeologist Flinders Petrie conducted excavations at Hawara. He did uncover remains of the pyramid itself, and a vast necropolis filled with Roman-era mummies. But when it came to the labyrinth, he found only fragments, large stone blocks, foundational walls, traces of a colossal structure, and then nothing, or so the records claim. Some researchers believe the true labyrinth lies beneath what Petrie explored, that it was intentionally buried, perhaps to protect sacred knowledge, or to hide something more dangerous. In 2008, a team using ground-penetrating radar reported anomalies under Hawara's sands, geometric voids stretching in unnatural patterns, as if halls and rooms still rested below the surface. But after the initial discovery, no further exploration was permitted. The site was closed off, quietly, permanently, and the silence returned. Locals in the region still speak of strange dreams near the pyramid, of hollow sounds beneath their footsteps, of ground that sometimes feels less than solid. Some fringe theorists claim that the labyrinth once held ancient texts older than dynastic Egypt, that it may have been a library of lost knowledge, hidden away from the world. Others believe it was never meant to be entered again, because not all chambers were meant to be explored. Some were meant to contain. Whether the labyrinth of Hawara was a ceremonial center, a grand prison, or a vault for memories mankind was not ready for, we do not know. What we do know is that beneath those shifting sands lies something man once built and then tried to forget, perhaps to protect the future from the past, or perhaps because it still waits, breathing beneath the earth, in silence. The painting that changed the vanishing figures of the disintegration of the persistence of memory art captures moments, but sometimes those moments refuse to stay still. In a quiet gallery, a painting was said to subtly change shapes, shifting, faces fading, shadows stretching. What began as whispers grew into tales of a canvas alive, reflecting not time but something far stranger, a puzzle wrapped in color and mystery, painted with brushstrokes that resist permanence. In the world of art, few pieces evoke mystery like Salvador Dali's surreal masterpiece, The Persistence of Memory. Painted in 1931, the melting clocks draped over barren landscapes symbolized time's fluidity and dreamlike states. But decades later, a lesser-known derivative, The Disintegration of the Persistence of Memory, painted by Dolly in Wusif, is said to hold an even deeper enigma. This second painting takes the original and breaks it apart, fragmenting the scene into floating blocks, dissolving the clocks into particles, and scattering figures into the void. Art historians note the painting's complexity, but some visitors to galleries housing it have reported something unsettling. They claim that over time, certain figures in the painting seem to vanish or shift position, not due to lighting or angle, but as if the canvas itself were alive. The phenomenon was first documented by a curator in a small Madrid gallery in the late 1970s. He noticed that one statue-like figure near the center, a faceless humanoid, was visible in photographs taken years prior, but appeared increasingly blurred or absent during recent viewings. Other observers reported that the famous melting clock's positions changed subtly between visits. Skeptics argue it is a trick of perception, the effect of light and shadow, or fading paint. But some believe Dolly embedded a secret code, a visual puzzle meant to evolve. Dolly was fascinated by quantum mechanics, atomic theory, and the idea of impermanence. He believed that reality itself was unstable, subject to change and decay. Some art theorists argue the painting is an early example of what today might be called interactive art, meant to shift with time and observer. Others go further, suggesting that Dolly's brushstrokes hold a hidden message, a reflection on how memory itself disintegrates, slipping away even as we try to hold on. The gallery curator kept detailed notes and photographs, building a collection showing the painting's evolution. After his death, these documents disappeared, fueling speculation about a cover-up or secret society guarding the true nature of the work. Meanwhile, the painting continues to hang quietly, a seemingly static piece with a life beneath the surface. Perhaps it is a mirror, not of time, but of the mind, of memory, of the fragile nature of existence. The library that never sleeps, the secret of the Vatican's forbidden archives, beneath the grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica. Behind doors barred to all but a chosen few, lies a collection whispered about in shadows and legend. Rows upon rows of ancient manuscripts, sealed scrolls, and cryptic tomes, guarded not just by locks, but by silence. The Vatican's secret archives, a labyrinth of knowledge lost to time, beckons the curious, yet denies them entry. What truths lie hidden behind those stone walls? Few places in the world inspire as much intrigue as the Vatican's secret archives. Despite its name, it is not secret in the sense of conspiracy, but rather private, reserved only for the Pope and select scholars. The archives are estimated to contain around 53 miles (85 kilometers) of shelving, filled with documents spanning over 12 centuries. Within these walls are papal correspondence dating back to the 8th century, records of church councils and decrees, letters from monarchs and historical figures, lost gospels and heretical texts, books and manuscripts never published. Access is strictly controlled. Scholars must apply years in advance, provide credentials, and agree to limited use. But the archives have long been the subject of myth and mystery. Rumors claim the vaults contain the original transcripts of Jesus' trial, proof of extraterrestrial contact, documents revealing hidden knowledge about the Holy Grail, describing lost technologies and ancient science's secrets. About the fate of Atlantis, some researchers believe that the archives themselves are layered with secret passages and chambers, accessible only by coded keys or rituals. One famous tale tells of a scholar who disappeared after sneaking a forbidden book out of the archives. He was never seen again. Others speak of ancient texts written in languages unknown even to Vatican linguists, requiring unique scholars versed in extinct dialects. The archives were almost destroyed several times during wars, fires, and political upheaval, but they survived, preserved by meticulous caretakers. Despite modern technology, much remains unscanned, untranslated, and hidden from public eye. This has fueled speculation that the Church deliberately keeps certain knowledge from the world, either to protect it or to conceal uncomfortable truths. Yet, the Vatican maintains that the archives are a treasure trove for historical study, not a den of secrets. But the aura remains. In the dim light of vaulted corridors, where the scent of ancient parchment lingers, one can almost hear whispers of forgotten knowledge, waiting patiently for the right moment, or the right seeker. The island of dolls, where the watchers never blink in the depths of a Mexican swamp. There is a place where silence is broken only by the rustling of leaves and the creaking of weathered limbs. an island scattered with dolls, eyes cracked, limbs missing, dresses tattered, standing vigil in perpetual stillness. They watch, always watching. Yet no one knows why they came to be there, or what unseen presence they serve. Just south of Mexico City, on the edge of Xochimilco's canals, lies a tiny, eerie land known as the Island of the Dolls. La Isla de las Muñecas. The story begins with Don Julian Santana Barrera, a solitary man who lived on the island in the mid-20th century. According to local legend, he found the body of a drowned girl in the nearby waters and soon after began hanging dolls from trees and buildings. At first, it was said to be an offering, a way to appease the spirit of the girl. But over the years, Julian's collection grew into the thousands. Dolls, puppets, and mannequins in various states of decay were strung across branches, nailed to walls, and left strewn on the ground. The dolls' faces, faded and cracked, seemed to follow visitors with glassy eyes. Stories tell of the dolls moving on their own, heads turning, limbs twitching. Visitors often report an uneasy feeling, as if the island itself breathes. Julian was known to talk to the dolls, treating them as protectors or companions. After his death in 2001, under mysterious circumstances, found drowned in the same canal where the girl's body was discovered, locals claim the doll's behavior intensified. Some believe the island is a gateway between the living and the dead. Others see it as a shrine to lost innocence. No one knows why the dolls remain. Some tourists brave the island to take photos or videos, capturing fleeting glimpses of shadowy movements or unexplained sounds. But the Island of Dolls is a place suspended between time and memory, where watchers never blink and silence weighs heavy, and somewhere beneath the tangle of limbs and fabric lies a story too fragile to be told. The eternal light of the Jaria coal mines beneath the earth in the heart of India. A fire has been burning for more than a century, invisible to the eye but felt in the heat that rises from cracked soil. The fire in the Jaria coalfields refuses to be extinguished. It consumes from below, swallowing villages, reshaping landscapes, and defying every attempt to tame it. A slow, relentless mystery that burns in silence beneath our feet. The Jaria coalfields, located in the state of Jharkhand, India, are among the richest coal reserves in the world. But their fame is shadowed by a far stranger tale, an underground fire that has been burning continuously since at least 1916. The fire started, likely due to mining accidents or spontaneous combustion of coal seams, but it quickly grew beyond control. Today, it spreads beneath an area of roughly 17 square kilometers, beneath towns and farmland. What makes a Jaria fire so mysterious is its longevity and behavior. Unlike typical surface fires that burn out quickly, this coal seam fire smolders deep underground, creating underground cavities, emitting toxic gases, and causing the ground to collapse unpredictably. Entire villages have been evacuated or destroyed as sinkholes opened without warning. Despite numerous attempts pumping water, digging trenches, and isolating affected areas, the fire continues to burn. Scientists estimate that the fire could continue for another 100 to 500 years. Local residents live with constant fear of ground instability and poisonous smoke, yet the land remains populated. The fire has reshaped the local culture with myths, describing the area as cursed or guarded by angry spirits. Some say the fire is a manifestation of Earth's anger, punishing human greed. Others see it as a symbol of eternal transformation, a slow, unstoppable force shaping life and death. From above, the Jaria fields appear as charred wastelands, with smoke rising like ghosts from the earth. From below, the fire moves unseen, a secret heart that burns in silence. It is a mystery of time, persistence, and nature's hidden power, a fire that refuses to die. The vanishing of the Soda children, a Christmas mystery. On a silent Christmas night in 1945, a fire engulfed the Soda family home in West Virginia. 5 children disappeared without a trace, their fate swallowed by flames and silence. Over decades, whispered sightings and cryptic clues have woven a tapestry of mystery, a haunting question of loss, hope, and the shadows left behind by a vanished family. The Soda family lived a simple, hard-working life in Fayetteville, West Virginia. On Christmas Eve, 1945, disaster struck. A fire erupted in their 2-story home late at night. Despite frantic attempts to rescue them, 5 of the 10 Soda children were never found. Their bodies never recovered in the ashes. The official conclusion was that the children had perished in the blaze, but the soldiers believed otherwise. They insisted the fire was no accident. Strange circumstances surrounded the event. The fire department's ladder was missing, preventing rescue. The family's phones had been cut. A series of unexplained phone calls warned the family not to investigate. The family's cars were sabotaged shortly before the fire. Over the years, the soldiers received anonymous letters and photographs suggesting the missing children were alive, possibly abducted. One chilling photograph received years later purported to show the 5 children as teenagers, posing in a group. The family hired private investigators and even placed a billboard near their home, pleading for information. Despite extensive searches and public interest, the mystery remains unsolved. Several theories attempt to explain the event: a targeted arson motivated by family disputes or local feuds, kidnapping by unknown parties, possibly related to political tensions at the time. The children perished, but the bodies were removed or destroyed in the fire's chaos. Even after decades, new leads surface occasionally, keeping the mystery alive. For the Soda family, the hope that their children might still be alive lingered until the last surviving member's death. The vanishing of the Soda children remains one of America's most poignant and haunting unsolved mysteries, a story etched in grief, unanswered questions, and the fragile line between memory and loss. The silent village of Houtuan, nature's return on a quiet island in China's Zhejiang province. A village once alive with laughter and work now sleeps beneath a lush green cloak, overgrown by vines and grasses. The houses stand empty, windows open like hollow eyes. Nature has reclaimed Houtuan, swallowing stone and timber alike. But the silence tells a deeper story, one of change, abandonment, and time's slow reclaiming. Located on Shengshan Island, part of the Jushan archipelago, the village of Houtuan was once a thriving fishing community. For decades, residents lived simple, coastal lives, hauling nets, tending crops, and raising families. But in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the village began to empty. Young people left for cities, drawn by opportunities and modern life. Gradually, houses were abandoned, roads fell into disrepair, and the ocean breeze carried only memories. What followed was a transformation. Within years, nature took hold. Ivy climbed walls, grasses grew thick on roofs, trees sprouted from windowsills. Today, Houtuan is a ghost village, a living museum of nature's reclamation. Photographers and travelers flock to witness the surreal sight of a village swallowed by greenery. The juxtaposition of man-made structures and wild growth creates a haunting beauty. The silence is profound. Footsteps echo in empty streets. Birdsong fills the air. Where children once played, the village stands as a symbol of impermanence, of humanity's fragile footprint, and the power of time. Researchers studying Houtuan see it as a case of rural depopulation, a common global phenomenon where economic and social changes lead to abandonment. But visitors sense something more profound, a quiet dialogue between human ambition and the Earth's patient embrace. Houtuan reminds us that in the end, time reclaims all. And in its silence, there is a story still being told. The signal lost in space, the mystery of the wow signal across the vast emptiness of the cosmos. A whisper echoed for a moment, a brief, unexplained signal that stirred hope and wonder in the hearts of those searching the stars. Recorded in 1977 by a humble radio telescope, it has never been heard again. The wow signal remains a fleeting enigma, a cosmic question mark that challenges our understanding of silence and solitude in the universe. On August 15, 1977, astronomer Jerry R. Eman was monitoring the skies using Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Observatory. Suddenly, his computer printout displayed an unusual series of characters, 6EQUJ5, a pattern unlike any natural background noise. The signal lasted just 72 seconds. Coming from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, Eman circled the data on the printout and wrote the infamous comment, "Wow." Since then, the wow signal has puzzled scientists, astronomers, and enthusiasts. Its characteristics were intriguing: a narrowband radio signal at 1420 MHz, the frequency hydrogen naturally emits and considered ideal for interstellar communication. No known earthly source or natural cosmic phenomenon could account for it. It was a single brief event, never repeated despite multiple follow-up searches. Efforts to locate the signal again have failed. Some propose it was an extraterrestrial message, perhaps a beacon or a one-time transmission. Others suggest more mundane explanations, a satellite glitch, Earth-based interference, or even a reflection of a passing comet's hydrogen cloud. In 2017, some astronomers proposed the signal might have originated from hydrogen clouds around comets, but this remains controversial. The WOW signal symbolizes the human desire to connect a momentary bridge across the abyss. It reminds us that among the vast stars, our questions linger, waiting for answers. Whether it was a cosmic hello, a passing anomaly, or a trick of chance, the WOW signal's mystery endures. And as we listen into the silence of space, we hold on to hope that one day, another WOW will echo through the void. Thank you for taking this journey through forgotten shadows and silent stories. If you enjoyed these quiet explorations, feel free to subscribe for more journeys into mystery and time.